My name is Roz Elder. I'm on the board of the Friends of the Tulsa City County Library, and it is my great honor to introduce my friend Flo to you. We call her Flo. I know it says Floretta on the proper information, but here we go. Okay, hold on to your seats because we're going to take a trip before she even gets up here. Floretta Reed has had an expansive career in the United Postal Service for 35 years. She began as a clerk in Los Angeles, California. She's earned a BS in Business Administration from UCLA. She also completed advanced management training at the University of Virginia and the University of Illinois. Now that's UCLA on one coast, Virginia on another coast, and Illinois in the middle of the country. There you go. Further education included executive leadership training and creative leadership training. Floretta's career positions included manager of transportation in Des Moines, Iowa, postmaster in Raleigh, North Carolina, and district manager of Oklahoma. Her last position was as manager of metro operations for the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Ooh. After retirement, you'd think she would rest, right? No, she traveled the world. Floretta has been to 6 continents and 85 countries. Yeah, curious about her ancestry, Floretta has searched her family heritage in the United States back to 1834. She has been to Africa 4 times, each time going to a different country. Through her African DNA test, she was able to narrow it down to Mali, Cameroon, and the Congo. After visiting Ghana, many of her questions were answered. Floretta will share that with us today. Floretta?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. I want to share with you my trip to Ghana, my search for who I am. I've been trying to figure out who I was for all my life. I have gone into great detail. When I found out where my grandfather, I had traced him back through DNA ancestry.com. And I was always trying to figure out, well, how did he get from there to Oklahoma? I went through all of that, found out those questions. And then I wanted to know, how did he get to America? And why Alabama? And when I did research, I found out that Alabama was the largest slave trade issue in the South. And they took care of all of the southern states when they came into Alabama. So I found that out. And then I said, okay, where did they leave Africa? So I kept searching and looking and trying to investigate. And I found out that most of them came here from Ghana on the slave trips, on the slave ships. And when I found out where Congo, Mali, and Cameroon were from Ghana, one of them was 1,100 miles, one of them was 1,000 miles, and one of them was 1,200 miles. Then I figured, how did they didn't have trains and they didn't have trucks, they didn't have cars. How did they get from there to Ghana? And doing the research, when I went to Ghana, I found out that they walked them for those miles. After they were captured either through war, either through kidnapping, whatever the case may be, they would take the Africans and walk them to Ghana for them to catch the slave trips. A lot of them died on the way to Ghana. The ones that did survive, and I'll go into all of that here in a minute. I'll start showing you some pictures, but I just want to, I have pictures here that some of them are just, I'll have headings in front of them like this one. And behind that will be some pictures to explain what I saw. A lot of them would just be issues and things that I saw that I just wanted to share. But when we got to this is me arriving in Ghana. We were so happy because we got on this bus when we got to the airport, and I realized that to get to Ghana, we were on a 16-hour flight, layovers and stuff. Okay. So when we saw the bus, and it was like you had a lounge chair seat, And it's like, oh my goodness, great, we're tired. So we thought, well, we're going to go to the hotel, which we did. And our travel agent told us what we were going to be doing today. Well, we thought we were going to the hotel and go to bed, but we found out that wasn't the case. This was the hotel. The hotel was absolutely gorgeous. This is the lobby. When we got to the lobby, they had refreshments for us. And our travel agent and our guide, we had a wonderful guide. He was and I'll show you a picture of him in the end. He was a professor at Ghana University, and he taught marketing. So he and the travel agent checked us in while we sat out in the lobby, and we ate and we drank and we went all around the campus. We didn't go all the way to campus because I didn't realize we were right on the beach. We just walked around because we had to go and get showered, get dressed so we can go on the rest of our trip. So this is part of the hotel. And then when we got through, we got back on the bus. And I'm just going to show you some pictures of the streets of Ghana. It's a very diverse street. When I say diverse, I mean diverse in what they have there. These are little shops, and everybody there, because they don't have things like they have here. They don't have Social Security. They don't have anything like that. So everybody works. And they all have their own little entrepreneur job. A lot of them sell fruit, sell other things. This is the Freedom Square. And this was nice. We got there and we went around and found out about what happened back in the day when they received their freedom from colonization. This is the president statue, the one that got the freedom for Ghana. This is one of the basically like our convention center, where they have different things going on in that place. And at this time, they were having a conference there. Now, me, being a postal employee, I travel all over the world, and I got a picture of a post office everywhere I've been. Because that's just what I do. Post office, I'm very proud to be a postal employee because I thought I was there to serve people. So my 35 years I spent, I was very proud of. And these are the different little sections where they have their own little shops, sold different things. And then we went to the mausoleum. Now, Kwame Nkrumah was the president that freed Ghana from colonization in 1961, I think. And this is his mausoleum. And it's beautiful inside. They've done a wonderful job. Now, this is him standing there without his head. That mausoleum was vandalized back in 1966, and they cut his head off. And they received the head back in 2009. So all that time, someone had it, and then they made the head another statue. They got it back. This is the mausoleum where him and his wife are buried. Beautiful inside, really beautiful. I think that is, I don't know what material it is. It's not marble. It looks like it's marble, but I don't think it's marble. But it's absolutely gorgeous. This is my hero always has been Nelson Mandela. Nelson gave Kwame this tree. It's a mango tree, and that's his dedication plaque there. And that's me standing in front of that tree. I mean, I had to go get that picture. This is him standing out in the front as you come in. And this star here, it brought my heart to me. It says, I am not an African because I was born in Africa. I'm an African because Africa was born in me. So that was something else. Now, granted, I told you that we had been 16 hours flight. We had been out all day touring and looking at different stuff. When we got back, we thought, okay, they said we're going to dinner. All right, we go to dinner. We go to dinner and they have these drummers and dancers. I mean, these people perform for 2 straight hours with all kind of energy. And not only that, they had us up on the floor dancing with them after we'd been, well, by this time, it's almost 30 hours. And we got up and had a ball. This is where we had dinner. We had dinner every night together as a group. We first had our first dinner was at the hotel. But then after that, we went to different restaurants throughout the city. And they all were nice in the food. I was just shocked at the food. It was delicious. They had a lot of shellfish that I couldn't eat. So they had a special menu for me. And it's some of the best fish I've had anywhere in the world. So I couldn't eat the fish, but I could eat the fish. I mean, I couldn't eat the shellfish, but I could eat that. Now, this is one of the national parks. It says a national park, but it's a forest. And when we first got there, where's the guy? The guy that was going to take us on this trip. He explained to us, he said, this is kind of a strenuous trip. So if you don't feel like you can make it, then don't try this. And I thought about it, and he said, well, you see, there was a lot of rocks on the ground there that you walked on, but it didn't seem too bad. I walked around, I was like, oh, I can do this. So I started climbing up this mountain, right? And it was a mountain. And when I got to almost the top, I thought I was going to pass out. I mean, I was like, why did I do this? Then I'm thinking, I got to get back down this mountain too. So when we got ready to go across, now they had this canopy, and I'll show you that. They have this canopy that's 1,000 feet long, 150 feet above the earth. And by the time I hit the top of the canopy, it started to rain. And the wind was blowing, and the thing was swaying back and forth. And I was like, oh my goodness, am I going to make it? But I walked that canopy, holding on for dear life. But up there, we saw some of the beautiful butterflies that I had never, some of which I've never seen before. They had birds and monkeys and all everywhere, but I couldn't take any pictures because I was holding on. So that's basically and how I got this picture. I was walking across, and this guy came up and said, let me have your camera. And I'm thinking, who are you? And should I give you my camera? So he took the camera and ran back up, and he took a picture. I have a video of me walking into this place, and it's awesome, but I couldn't put videos on here too. I mean, I guess I could have, I just didn't know how to. My skills as far as, technology is limited. So this is the best I could do. But so we left there. Now this is where it starts to hurt. We went to the castle. I don't know why they call them castles. This was our guide, and he showed us throughout the castles what was going on in there. And this is what they looked like. They were just a brick concrete wall. They had no seats, nothing to sit on, no bathrooms, nothing. And this is where they would put as many as 300 men in that one room, right in each other's face, that they had to withstand. And I'm going to show you how they had to walk. And when they walked, they went through a process of having the last bath and the first bath. And then they took them here to catch the ships. But it depended on when the ship was coming. Some ships came right away. Other ships is 3 months. So a lot of them had to stay in places like this for 3 months. And I want to show you this. Where's this light go? Where'd that light go? Somewhere here. Oh, there it is. There it is. That right there was that's where the urine went. Okay. It's on the floor. Yeah. It's on the floor. That's where the urine went. This is when they had to use the bathroom number 2. That's where it went. Okay. And it was hard to listen to because our guides they were just raw with the facts. They were facts, but it was hurting. It hurt. Okay. And then they told us that find a place to go and communicate with your ancestors. Tell them that, whatever you want to tell them, that you came back to see them and you came back to visit them. And when I went over there and touched that wall, it was an experience that I will never forget. When I touched it, it felt like I felt them. I felt their presence all around. So I stood at that wall and cried like a little baby, because I just felt them being there saying, thanks for coming back. Thank you. And then this, you see that light, that door there, that window up there? That's where the guards would look into this castle where they kept the slaves. And if somebody died, they could see them. So they'd go there and pull them out, throw them in the ocean. Um, and this door is the last door of return for this particular Cape Coast castle. When they went out this door, the slaves were then put on a ship, and they packed them in a ship on the bottom of the ship on top of each other. And that's when they came to either the Americas or the Caribbean. And they had wars back in the day because it was Europeans, either Portuguese, French, British, and Spain. They would fight over the slaves because, they could make good money on them. So that's why they had all of the protection. So if somebody was coming up, it's right there on the water. So if anybody was coming up, they could get them. So this is us leaving there. And then we had fun. We went, and the way they laid this out was tremendous because you go through all this stuff where you're crying and going on. Then they would take you somewhere where you're just happy, because all the people there are happy people. It's unbelievable. So we went here, and all of you saw my little monkeys over here. That's what I made. That, whoa, go back. That, I can get this little light to shine. This is where they would they would heat wax. And these patterns, you could choose your pattern that you wanted to use. I chose monkeys because I like monkeys. And you would use those that hot wax on the pattern and put it on this white cloth and make it's called batnik, to make your thing. And then they would dye it for you. I chose red. You could choose red, green, or yellow. I chose red, so they dyed it for us. And then there's my little happy monkeys. And here, this guy he showed us how to, this little yellow scarf I have over here. He showed us based on that same shirt that he has on. I have it over here in red. That has all the symbols of this particular tribe. And I chose the symbols of abundance, unity, and friendship. And that's what I made my little thing out of. But he showed us how they use bark from trees to make the dye. I mean, they do things, and it's just amazing how it's done. And it's natural. Everything over there is basically natural. Then we got here. This young lady had us singing. She sang us a happy song. We're happy, happy, happy. Then they had the African song. I love Africa. I love Africa. And then we chopped and chopped. You see that the blue pail there. Every time you touch something, you had a pail to wash your hands. You couldn't like cut garlic and then go cut something else. You had to wash your hands between times. And we chopped up onion, garlic, ginger, greens, and tomatoes to make our meal. And then this is the little pot that this is the little pot we use. And I'm thinking, you cook a meal like this in a little pot like that, it's amazing because the meal was absolutely fabulous. So this is one of our ladies that was with us. She was over there cooking and I was chopping, and everybody was doing something. We all participated. And she kept us going. I mean, she was just fantastic. I don't know what that is she had in her hand, but it must have been some African herbs or something that when you put it in the food, it just lifted it way up. And she put it in the stuff. And this is another pot. That pot, the stuff that was in that pot was the best tasting. It called fufu. And it had some stuff called amadou. We had white yams. That's the only thing I didn't really like was the white yams because I'm used to having candied yams. And these were just boiled. So I didn't particularly care for that. And then after we left that, we went to the beach. And like I said, they had beaches everywhere. And there we learned the drumming, the dances, and the head wraps. That's the lady that taught us how to beat the drums. And man, I was beating the drums. I was having me such a good time. And then she taught us how to do the dances. And then they had head wraps. And here's the ladies when they finished their head wraps. And this is all of us that when we got our heads all wrapped up. beautiful wraps. Material was awesome. So we were there. And then this was probably one of the more emotional times. This is our naming ceremony. And this is what us coming in, we had to wear white that day. This is us coming into the village. And it was a village where they danced. When we came in, they were dancing and singing. They sang us and danced us all the way into the village. There's some more of them. And then there's this is the beginning of the ceremony. And it was awesome again. And that little white chair that's sitting there, bench, I mean, that's where we sat. And they would have this ritual over us about our naming ceremony, because they had lost this tradition for centuries, because when they were colonized, they weren't able to do it. Now that they're free, everybody comes to Africa. If you want to, you can go to the naming ceremony, because they believe in doing that. So, and then this is me getting my certificate, and I'm coming back to my seat. And then this is us when we finished everything. And then we went and took a seat again. And this is what just broke me up. Somebody's calling me. I'm sitting out here with that group you just saw. And the chief says, would you come up? And when he said that, I didn't think he was talking to me. I'm like, why are you telling me to come up? And he said, would you come up? And I still didn't move, because I didn't know it was people sitting behind me. I didn't know what he was doing. So his helper came and said, the chief wants to talk to you. And I said, okay. So I go up and he says, I've been watching you and I see your light. And I'm thinking, really? And he says, I have an aunt that lives in Chicago that you remind me so much of her, and I miss her so much. So he said, may I bless you? And when he took my hand, I mean, I felt cold chills just run all through my body. And when he got through blessing me, I was crying again. And it was just such a wonderful experience, because it was tradition. I did not know what my traditions are. I know what my American traditions are, but I didn't know what my native land. I am 67% African. And I had no idea what it was about. I've been to Africa 4 or 5 different times, but I never did relate to, okay, let me see what traditions I had when my people were there. And my people, they started taking people out of Africa in the 1200s. They didn't come to the United States until 1600s, but they started taking the Africans away from Africa through wars, through stealing them, whatever the case may be, in 1200. And they took them all. We have Africans all over the world. It was free labor for the whole world, not just the United States, but everywhere. So it was just good to know what the traditions are, and the fact that they were able to get back to their naming ceremonies again. Then we go to another castle. This is me with one of the guys that was at the naming ceremony. He was an assistant chief. He's the one that came and got me, but he had on this beautiful white shirt. I was like, well, where'd you get that shirt? Can I get one? It was beautiful. He had on this white shirt, and he came with us when we went to the castle. This guy was our guide. He knew his history inside and out. And he told us all about what happened to the Africans back in the day. That's the way they looked. And again, they have these holes where they can peep in and see how people are doing. If they die, they go, okay? That's one of the holes there. And then this, again, start crying again. That ball, they had several of them out in the open courtyard. And what they would do is the women, because they had men, the men was one place, the women was another. The women that didn't submit to them, the guards and the soldiers, they would take them out in the courtyard, strip them naked, put a chain around their ankle and tie to this ball, and they would stay there either until they submitted to them or they died, one of the two. And again, that was hard to hear. And then this room here, this is where they put the men that don't abide by their rules. If they talk back, or if they did anything, I mean, you can imagine these people were free. They had lived, and most of them, when you go back and look at the 1200s and the 1300s in Africa, I mean, there was places that were just booming. And then when they were colonized, they lost all that. So these guys, if they didn't do what they were supposed to do, they went in that room. And they know when they went in there, they weren't coming back. They would put them in there, wouldn't feed them, wouldn't give them any water until they died. This, another time, I cried again. This was the ceremony. He was a spiritual leader. And he had this ceremony about right there at the last door, before you go out and catch the ships. And he had spoken, I mean, he was just wonderful. And again, he asked me to come up. And now by this time, everybody looking at me like, why you always get asked up? I don't know. He asked me up and he said, I want you to share your light. And he gave me this, what it looked like to me, a little lantern. And he said, and he lit the candle and he told everybody to come around and take their light from this candle. So they did that. And I had to stare everybody in the eye as they walked around. And then this, I call it like a little altar. He told us to leave our light with our ancestors and any other gifts we want to leave. So we did that. And again, we cried because they were playing this song, Welcome Home. It's an African song that I've been trying to get on Pandora and everywhere else. I can't find it. But I'm going to find it because it's a beautiful song. They were singing the song, and I think everybody in there was crying. This is the last exit. When you exit here, you're not coming back to Africa. They put them on ships, and they never saw Africa again. This is the Slave River, and this is the walk that you walk down to the river. Beautiful. I mean, I couldn't believe all this beauty around all this evil. You know, it was beautiful walking down there. And this is what they call the first bath. Now, they've been walking for 1,200 miles or 1,100 miles or whatever the case may be. So, and they were still chained. So they walked them here to the first bath, and they couldn't wash themselves because they're chained. So they started trying to wash each other. And the guard saw it and said, no, you guys trying to get away. So what they did, you see those trees up there? They took those tree limbs and washed the people. And they had bruises and cuts all over them as they washed them. And then they would take them and put palm oil on their skin, because this is where all of the people that was buying slaves would come. And then that's what they had them chained like that. And then what they would do to the ones, like if I bought 4 or 5 of them, I had my branding tool, which was put in hot, very hot. And they would brand them twice on the shoulders, once in the stomach, once on the back, to know that that would belong to me or whoever was mine. And then they took us down to the water, where the slaves were washed. And you know, I'm scared of water, always have been. So I went down there, and the water was so cool and refreshing. And they told us to tell our ancestors or ask our ancestors for something that would help us in life. Okay. So I asked my ancestors to teach me how to swim and not to be afraid of water. But I don't know. I haven't done anything in water since then. So it's hard to know. So this is the chain. They said they had probably 20 of these chains, and now they've been lost, and they probably got 10 of them now that they have in these boxes, so people can see what they were on, what they were in. And then this is something about emancipate your mind that we all have to do as African or African Americans, because you know you've been enslaved, you've been treated bad, even when they were in Africa, and then when they came to America, it got even worse. But you got to get out of that mindset. And when I left there, my mindset was wholly different, you know. Then we had several of these that we saw. This one was a little different because what happened is that when they were colonized, all of their artifacts were taken by whoever colonized them. And most of their artifacts was in gold, because they had gold everywhere in Africa. It was not something that was just special, you know. Everything was made in gold. So in this place, this is where the president of the Ashanti tribe was housed until 1976 when they made it into a museum. But this is where all the presidents, that was their residence up to this point. And they were well known because they were very, as a society, they were very well educated. They knew what they were doing. So they were probably the last group to go. But what was so amazing to this one is that when you couldn't take pictures on the inside, but we saw some of the artifacts, a lot of it small and medium size, the big size we didn't see. But the small and medium sized artifacts we saw, because guess what? Britain had loaned them their artifacts back for their 150th anniversary, and they could keep it for 6 months. Now, this originally belonged to them, but they let them have it back for 6 months for them to celebrate their 150th year celebration. They had a gold chair that the British never got hold to. It was a chair that the king sat in. It made out of pure gold. And somehow they have been able to hide that chair up until the day. They still own that chair. And I'm sure it's probably worth, a chair that size, probably millions in gold. This tree, I was really fascinated with this tree because it was a beautiful tree. It was the tallest tree, I think, even when I went to Yosemite and all those places, this tree was taller than that. It was awesome. And we took pictures out front. And this is out on the land out in front. We saw the birds, different kind of birds they had. And then this was one of the statues they had out front that I took pictures with. And then we leave there and we go to the weaving factory and the cocoa plant. And the kente cloth is where they would put the different colors together, and then they would weave it into patterns. This is where you found a lot of wood carvings that were, they made just about everything out of beautiful woods. I don't know where they got the wood from. It's mostly black wood. And I got that little thing there. But they made chairs, royal chairs. They made walking sticks. They made all kinds of things there, and they were known for that in that area. Then this is the cocoa plate. Cocoa, I call it the cocoa. That's what I called it. Anyhow, that's where the cocoa trees were, and those plants. Let me show you. That is cocoa. I never knew cocoa was like that. I don't know what I thought it was. I thought it was chocolate. I thought it was, but these were cocoa that he cut open, and we tasted it, and it tastes like chocolate, some of the best chocolate you ever taste. But he said you just have to suck it. You don't chew it, you suck it. Okay. And that cocoa from Ghana is one of the most sought after cocoa because of the soil that's there. They have high quality cocoa in Ghana. And then he showed us what that whole tree, that entire tree, can be used for medicinal purposes. Whether it's the leaves, the roots, the bark, the limbs, they use this for medical reasons to cure their bodies, or it's like a medicine thing. And he showed us all the things that they make for diabetes, for cholesterol, whatever the case may be. That's what they took. Here is when we went to the weaving, and these looms that they would put different colors. I sit there and watch them, and then they let us do it. You bring 4 or 5 different strings together and make a pattern of those strings, and then you would loom it into, I'll show you what one of these things were, the loom itself. But see, while we're sitting there, and it didn't take them more than 10 minutes, and then we had what we call a bonus Sunday, because we had no place else to go on Sunday. Because everybody in Ghana is very religious. Everybody goes to church on Sunday. So everything is closed. There's nothing open. So we went to the Baltic River, and the Baltic River is where they had built their electricity grid, their dam, that provided electricity to 90% of the people in Ghana. I don't care what part of Ghana you go to, they have electricity. But this place is absolutely beautiful. on the way up there, we saw a lot of baboons running everywhere. Then when we got there, the place was absolutely beautiful. The river, the restaurant, they had some of the best drinks like ginger and coconut and just stuff mixed up together that I never would have thought to mix, but it was absolutely refreshing and delicious. And the restaurant was beautiful. So then we go, this is part of the restaurant. Then we go out and catch the boat and we take a boat ride. I'm standing here taking a picture here before we go on the boat. And then we get on the boat and travel up and down the river. And the beautiful scenery, beautiful. And I've said, because this place is so beautiful, if I ever get married again, I'm going over there and walk down that aisle. That place was awesome. And then, of course, this is our last night at the hotel, last walk on the beach. This is my buddies, because I walked on the beach either in the evening or in the morning, depending on what time we were leaving. And I see these guys out here selling wares all the time. A lot of this stuff I bought on the beach. And they were just friendly and helpful. That was my little buddy there. He always came, whenever I went out there, he came and ran up to me and talked. How you today? You know, and this is me on a horse on the beach. This is our last dinner that night. And we, like I said, we all ate together. A lot of it was good because we were able to talk and share our experiences and let some of this stuff we saw today go. It was like a therapy session every night. We enjoyed each other's company. A lot of the folks, usually I've been traveling with the travel agents for a long time, but a lot of these people I didn't know before I went on this trip, because of the ones I'm normally travel with had already been to Ghana. So a lot of these folks was new to me. And we had such a good time together. It was like family, really. After we had eaten 14 nights together and around the table and talking, so it was like family. And then this was he was our guide from the time we got to the airport. He went everywhere with us until we went back to the airport to leave. He was so attentive, so well educated, because he's, like I said, he's a professor at Ghana University. And nice young man. That young man is the one that when I was up there on that mountain coming down, and I was scared because the rocks were slippery. And I was like, I don't know. I was terrified. I'm not gonna lie, I was terrified. So he came up and he gave me his arm and he said, I'll help you. And he walked me all the way down that mountain. And we had such a good conversation. You know, he had just gotten married. I learned all about him. I learned all about Ghana. He was just such a doll. I mean, he took care of, all of them took care of me. I can't say everywhere I went, because I was the oldest one on the group. You know, and I'm going through some terrain that's uneven. You know, you got to watch where you're going. And it was always somebody that I didn't know, would always come up and say, let me help you, which I thought was amazing. This was at the last dinner, right there at the restaurant. This is my last walk on the beach. That beach was beautiful. I walked in either morning or evening every day. And I'm scared of water, but I love water. I lived in California for a long time, and I would go out in the middle of the night and climb down on rocks to see the beach, you know, hear the ocean, hear the sound, which always relaxed me. I don't care what I was going through. When I got through with walking on that beach, I always felt better. So this is basically the end of the pictures, but I found who I was when I was there. I've always wanted to know why I was the way I was. People mistreated me, they discriminated against me, whatever the case may be. I never was hostile toward anybody because I don't know. And I would always ask myself, what's wrong with me? I need to clap this person. But I never thought about doing that. And when I found people in Africa, to find out how good they were, how sweet they are, how loving they are, how helpful they are. They have a little bit of nothing, some of them. but they will share with you whatever they have. And they're happy. They're happy people. And I said, well, that's why I'm the way I am. It's in my DNA. I mean, I'm 67% African. And they do this. They told us, and I've heard this not only here, but I've heard it several places. Because I've seen people mistreat people, like we're in a restaurant somewhere, and somebody will talk to the people that's working or helping them like they're, very disrespectful. So I remember I asked this man one night, and he was a beautiful man. He always helpful to everybody that came in the restaurant. And they just talked to him all crazy. So I asked him, I said, how do you put up with this? He said, put up with what? I said, where these people talk to you? And he said, people can talk to where they want to. That's not on me, that's on them. And I learned that, and I feel that. If somebody does something bad to me, that's on you. That's not on me. I'm not going to do that to you. Whatever you want to do to me, do it, because my mother was always the one that taught me to forgive. Every time I'd get mad at one of my sisters or brothers, she said, I hate George. No, you don't. You love them. You forgive them. Don't let anybody take your spirit away. And I think from that time through going through all of this and realizing that, we don't have to be the way we are. If we would take our time and help each other and see each other as human beings, it would be such a better world. I saw a world over there that I wish I had here. I can't live in Africa, it's too far away. Nobody come see me. But the environment, the people that are happy, the people that are working every day to try to make a living, the people that's trying to do as much as they can for their neighbor, which I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, it was just wonderful. I mean, you just felt free. And the freedom and the peace and the love I felt there, I will never forget. And I'm glad I went, even though it was rough. I mean, it was rough emotionally. It was rough because we never got any rest, really. We were always on somewhere, and sometimes you get tired, but then you wouldn't be tired when you went out and saw things. So that was the good part about it. But it was such an experience that I will always cherish. And I learned so much about myself and why I was the way I am. And I learned so much about my African descendants and my family, and how my grandfather got to America, how they were treated to get to America. And I realized the strength, the courage, the perseverance they had to, first of all, get to America. And then after they get to America, they become enslaved, and they built half of America's East Coast. They grew all of the cotton, tobacco, whatever the case was be, for free. We're still not where we need to be as a race. But again, that's not my issue. That's on the people that's doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it to anybody I know. I try to reach out to people and care about them and do what I can for them. But hey, I learned who I was, and I'm so happy that I went. And I thank my Heavenly Father each and every day that I got that opportunity. And I want to thank all of you for coming and listening to me. And anybody have any questions?
What's your African name and what it means?
Abina is I can't say my last name. I can't pronounce it. But my African name is Abina, and that was given to me because I was born on Tuesday. They have names that they give for the day of the week you were born. They have a different name for the men that was born on Tuesday than I have for the women that were born on Tuesday. And it's a ceremonial situation because some of their names were not, the people that we met name was not Abina and whatever. They had actual African names. But when they do the naming ceremony, to make it simple, that's how they do it. They go by the day of the week you were born. So I was born on Tuesday. So Tuesday female name is Abina. Yeah.
How did you mention your relative? You were able to trace it back to 1834.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find that out?
Through ancestry.com, most of it. And then I had a cousin that when we were working on when I was working on it, she was 106 years old. And she remembered my grandmother, which was my grandfather's wife. And she told me a lot because she lived with my grandmother for a while. my grandmother lived with them. So I learned from her. I interviewed her. I got tapes of her, probably 4 or 5 hours long. And I would remember, I would look up something in the ancestry.com, and it would say Betty had 3 kids, and her name was Jim, John, and whoever. And I said, I was talking to her, and I said, Betty, and I said she had 3 kids, and she said, yeah, and she named them. Before I was like, really? And she was instrumental in me having that. And then looking at the census, which I was glad that all of my ancestors used the census. A lot of it was in the census of where they were and who they were born and where they lived and who was living in the house with them. When I found out that we had a lot of people, a lot of different parts of the family that lived together, like it'd be cousins living with folks, and they all lived in the same area in the house that they grew up together. So that's how I learned that. But it was a lot of research. But doing the research, what I found is I got started and it was like an addiction. I couldn't stop. I stayed in front of the computer, I found out who this one is. Let me find this. Where did he go? That kind of thing. But yeah, it was difficult, but we found them.
In English. Don't they have their own language?
They do, but they speak English. Most of them speak English. But the other thing about the language, there could be, like in Ghana, they can have 20, 50 tribes, all of which speak different languages. When these guys were captured and they went into those caves, a lot of them couldn't communicate with each other because one speaks one language, one speaks the other. So there was a lot of different tribes that ended up together and lived in the same area because different tribes had different languages.
Curious about those structures were called castles. I'm thinking of European castles, and I'm seeing those. Were they before like fortresses, and then they were just used for?
Well, yeah, the one especially the one in Elmina, that was a fort that they used to transport gold and timber. But they found out that transporting gold and timber, you couldn't put too much on the ship because it was sinking. It was the weight. So they realized probably in the mid 1500s that it was cheaper for them to use slaves because they could put more slaves on the ship than they could put gold and lumber. So that's how they changed. Most of them were actual forts, or not forts, trading posts, because they traded just about everything that Africa had. They were, I don't know why they call it trading. They took, they took all of the gold, all of the spices, because they had a lot of spices that they had. They took all of that and put that on the ship, and they were doing that at first. And then they realized, this, we're sinking our ships. We got to do something different. And then when I think they start sending the people, not from Africa, not from the West Africa, where we came in here. They start sending people to Australia, New Zealand, on the other side of Africa, the east side. So they started that in the 1200s. And can you imagine? And I keep trying to figure out why these folks hadn't gotten better than they are, because you have gold, you got all the resources in the world, and you're still poor. But imagine if all of your men are taken, all of your childbearing women are taken. The only thing left is children and old people in these countries. How do you expect them to thrive? Because all you got is kids. Because if you were 12 years old and you were a boy, you were going to be a slave. So anything like 9, 10, they had those kids, and they had the old people that they left, but everybody else they took. For years, for generations, centuries. I won't say generation, centuries. You're talking about from 1200 to 1800. That's 600 years that they kept on taking, and taking. But the people that are still there, again, I tell you, they're happy as heck. I mean, they're happy everywhere I went, because every time I'd go somewhere, I remember I was in Soweto one time, and I went to see the apartheid and how they shot all these kids in the middle of the street. And I went into the museum, and I came out of there, and I was just, oh man, I was just tore up. And I asked the guide, I said, God, why? He said, Again, I heard that all over Africa, wherever I went. Hey, that stuff is on them. You know, we know that we're victims of it, but we're not a victim. We're not going to be a victim. We're going to be free. We're going to be able to do what we need to do. We're going to take care of our families. We're going to take care of our church. We're going to take care of our animals. And that's what they do. They take care of animals. They love the land very much. It's not like us. We mess up our land. They don't mess up their land there. So, but that was the thing that I found that was just really amazing to me. Well, thank you again. Oh, nothing. Volta, Volta. It's the longest river anywhere in the world. And it was a beautiful river. Yeah.
The grandfather you were talking about, how many generations back was it? Do you know?
He was my great grandfather. So, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Your great grandfather?
Great grandfather. Yeah. Yes. All of us came from Africa. Huh? No, he was born in Alabama. His parents were physically put on the ship. He was born in Alabama. All right. Well, thank you guys for your attention. I truly appreciate it. And my preachers are over there. Thank you guys for coming.